and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
What's going on, everybody? Today I got a special guest, Clint Russell from the Liberty Lockdown, to talk about what did Trump mean by we're going to take over Gaza. Does he mean that we're going to own it, that we're going to rebuild it for the people, that they're going to leave, that it's just a negotiating tactic, as some are saying online? We will speculate on all of that. The second story is going to be about the curious connection between the Luka Doncic Dallas Mavericks trade and Miriam Adelson, one of Trump's biggest donors, who just recently took over the team. And I did my own research. She is pushing for gambling to be legalized in Texas, where it is not. So there's some interesting stuff there we'll talk about. That may or may not be hate speech, considering the definitions are being changed all over the country. And then we're going to just do some, I would say, compliments to Donald Trump. I know me and Clint, especially before yesterday, we have a lot of things that we're super pumped about. So I don't want to just seem like a hater. We'll go over all of his accomplishments, and I think Clint probably has been tracking him even better than me. So how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm probably most excited about this Miriam Adelson Luka Doncic trade conspiracy theory, because this sounds right up my alley. I am the world's biggest Los Angeles Lakers fan, so I was incredibly pumped that we got Luka, especially with a very old but still very capable LeBron James. So I'm thrilled to find out where you're going with that. As for, do you want to hop into the Israel Gaza takeover stuff first, or where are we going?
Real quick, I want to play my Dream Rare podcast. Starts now.
It's the Dream Rare podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
That was my favorite way to start the show. That was funny. You're like, what should we do? I was like, click that button right now.
You're like, how about we do the intro, Clint? All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. My bad.
So I want to do something real quick before we kind of weigh in on the Gaza stuff. First of all, give us thumbs up in the chat if everything sounds good. Make sure the audio and video sounds good. Thumbs up in the chat. And I had a few videos demonetized on Instagram recently, and it's kind of my MO to every time they either get demonetized or censored in some way, I just reshare them. I try to have that be like the karmic energy where it's like they try to not have people see it or penalize me for doing it, and then I play it. So I just want to let people know, because when it comes to Gaza, there's going to be opinions, speculation. Of course, it's a foreign country, a war that we're involved in. But when it comes to America, the anti-Semitism hate speech laws that are being passed through government, in legislation, executive order, that affects our First Amendment. And every time I try to talk about it, I either get called an anti-Semite or they punish the video. So I just want to show you that Mark Zuckerberg says he's, totally changed and doing jujitsu. Here's the video real quick they tried to censor because it's totally fact-based, reasonable. And I feel like now that Trump is in office, they're trying to basically, hit the other side of cancel culture, which is trying to say that everything is anti-Semitic. So here's that video real quick. And let me know, regardless what you think about Israel or Palestine, in the comments, should this video be censored in America and demonized/demonetized?
Republicans often say that they don't believe in hate speech. When it comes to certain edgy racial or sexual conversations about LGBT, conservatives say that the First Amendment is king. There is no such thing as hate speech. And it's hard to police hate speech because it depends who the government is and what they classify as hate. I agree with that. But the Republican Party actually doesn't believe what they're saying, and they're the ultimate hypocrite. Recently, Kristi Noem signed a bill. Governor Youngkin signed a bill when he got into office. Governor Kemp signed a bill. Donald Trump, when he was in office, passed an executive order. And Ron DeSantis has passed multiple bills to define what is anti-Semitism, essentially hate speech phrases that they are going to codify into law to use to police hate. These hate speech rules are for one race, one religion, and one country only. It attempts to police how much you criticize Israel, talking about patterns in banking and media, who killed Jesus even, biblical discussion, and much more. Now, when Republicans say edgy stuff about other races and LGBT, they say policing speech doesn't stop hate and it doesn't stop worse situations. But when it comes to Israel, one ethnicity and one religion, all of a sudden Republicans don't believe what they tell you they believe all the time. But you won't hear much about it because most conservative media either completely agrees, covers it up, or to be quite honest, is afraid to talk about it because everybody knows if you talk about this topic, even with love and First Amendment American principles leading first, no hate at all, you get smeared by the press as anti-Semitic, you get blacklisted by most major Republican media, and the only way to rise the ranks is to sell out your beliefs for social clout and money. Let me know what you think.
So that video,
he ain't lying.
yeah. So that video, as well as a few others. One was Elon Musk when there were blank groups trying to call him anti-Semitic. He came out and said, you know, go F yourself, boycott, I don't care. Like, he was having his moment of like, I'm not this, stop calling me that. And I just brought that up to say, hey, they're using the term anti-Semitism to basically try to, you know, ruin Twitter, even though Elon Musk is not. And that video got demonetized. So I'm not really concerned with the money because I don't make that much on Instagram. But I am weirded out that these are year-old videos, 2 years old videos in some cases, that they're retroactively trying to punish pretty much any video where I talk about the term anti-Semitism being passed into law as a hate speech law or used to bully people. So I find the timing suspicious.
I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. And just honestly, like whatever you feel about the war between, you know, Palestine and Israel, or even if you feel like there has been an increase in anti-Semitism over the past couple of years, which I think some people do feel as if that's true, you still have to realize that a video like the one you just showed is so like obviously factual and not at all hateful that for that to be well, fortunately, I guess it wasn't like actually struck, but it was just demonetized.
Right.
I mean, it's just terrible, man. It's so obviously accurate that like everything you said there is true. That this is one law for one religion, one people, and this is completely counter to everything that every conservative runs on when it comes to hate speech laws for everybody else. But suddenly they all forget that principle when it comes to one group, and I just can't stand it. I believe in actual equal treatment under the law.
Yeah, and we'll get into the next topic, but I just want to let people know, because often they listen to, you know, Ben Shapiro types or say, no, it's just the extreme people doing violence, or it's just the foreigners protesting in America, which I kind of agree that, like, if you're in America, you shouldn't be like protesting our country, just go home. But with that being said, they're conditioned to think, oh, it's just the most radical and crazy and Hamas and left-wing Antifa that are getting struck. And it's like, that's not what the law says. That's not what's being passed into legislation. And that's not my experience at all. Like Elon Musk, they use the term anti-Semitism to try to bully American citizens who talk about lobbying money, who talk about free speech. And, you know, it's not just the radicals or the crazies or on Twitter, like the most mean accounts. It's anybody that even goes near it, including Tucker Carlson, who's now getting a huge barrage, you know, based on just saying England looks like a country that lost World War II,
Right.
which is true. It does.
Yeah,
like
which is like, if you actually look at it, does it feel as if you're still in London? Like, no, not really. So when he asked that question to Piers Morgan, I mean, Piers Morgan is hilarious to me because he's like, you know, you've got to get rid of the guns, and then Tucker's like, how those stabbing issues going? And he's like, yeah, we've got an issue with knives too. And it's like, no, dude, no, you don't have an issue with knives, and you didn't have an issue with guns. You have an issue with violence. Why do you have an issue with violence? Oh, it's because you've had open borders for decades and decades and decades. Well, good luck.
I just filmed a video on that. I'm going to edit it. It's going to be like a 15-minute video. I got into the Pierce and Tucker stuff. So if anybody's interested, I'll cover that. I want to get your take first, because I know you've seen some recent news where I think Caroline Leavitt said that we're not going to put U.S. troops on the ground and we're not going to spend U.S. money. But that video of Trump, he specifically said, you know, the U.S. is going to own Gaza without anything else for me. Like, where are you going with that, or how are you taking it?
Well, you can see my entire roller coaster response to this based off of my Twitter feed. But my initial response was like, dear God, no, I hate this. This is the worst idea ever, which it is. I just want to make that very clear. Then I saw another video of Netanyahu that was like zoomed in on Netanyahu as Trump was saying that. And it does seem to me as if he was caught off guard by Trump announcing that. So my current assumption, I don't know for a fact, but my current assumption is that Trump was essentially, because if you're like me and you believe that much of what was transpiring was like the Greater Israel Project and that they're trying to actually take over all of Palestine, well then, yeah, having America own Gaza kind of screws up that plan now, doesn't it? So Also, the Arab states are not really interested in taking in Palestinian refugees, and I don't blame them because that is assisting in ethnic cleansing. So I think that's what Trump was doing. Is I think he was throwing a crazy curveball right live on air, and seeing how things, what the fallout would be, and if he could get the Arab nations and the Israelis to the negotiating table. I think the one thing he didn't really calculate was that his supporters were going to lose their minds because it's the worst possible bluff. I mean, it's just a terrible idea if you were to ever do it. But fingers crossed you won't.
For the sake of my blood pressure, I'm trying to be calm this year, and nothing really surprises me at this point because I'm kind of expecting a lot of curveballs. Like I already know who Trump is and the one topic that he always caves on. But this is my thought process, and it goes out of politics. Like for COVID, when they said they were going to lock the country down, my logic went to, if you could lock the country down, and now we're authoritarian, which I don't agree with, but we are, and you could lock everybody in their house and everybody's getting fat. Can't you mandate a workout routine? And it's like, it's not even a political thought. It's just a basic physical thought. Like if you could mandate a lockdown, why can't you mandate a workout routine? And my logical thought outside of Israel, Palestine, America, right-wing Zionists, whatever, my logical thought is New Orleans is in Louisiana. That's where Mike Johnson's from, right? Louisiana, it's a red state, blue city. New Orleans is one of the murder capitals of the country. I used AI to try to search because I figured are, Ukrainian cities safer than American cities? They are. America is turning into a dump. I love this country. Los Angeles is a dump. Philadelphia is a dump. New York City had its glory days, and those are gone. Like Austin is getting pretty rough. And then you go to Tokyo, and it's beautiful. Dubai is nice. There's Singapore. There's other countries that have figured out you don't have to make all your cities bad. It's embarrassing because the city's supposed to be the best part, the coolest part of the country. Outside of a football stadium and good cuisine and nightlife, they're turning into shitholes. And so it's like, if you can make Gaza beautiful again, like Marco Rubio, why can't you make New Orleans beautiful again? Why can't you? Well, it's a Democrat city. A Democrat city in a Republican state is more an American politician's business than Gaza is. So that's where my logical head goes. It's like these idiots, and I'm not just saying Republicans, I'm saying Democrats too. They can't fix American cities. They have no plan on doing so. Yet they run around telling you that your money needs to go to Ukraine, who has safer cities. Your money needs to go to Israel, who has universal health care. We're going to rebuild Gaza. How? You can't even rebuild New Orleans.
Well, you're exactly right. And if you've been paying attention to this USAID, disclosure stuff that we've been seeing in terms of corruption and money that's been sent all over the world, which is really, well, we could probably go deeper on that. Yeah, I mean, the answer is obviously that, like, no, we can't fix Gaza. And no, we don't have a legal right, international law-wise, to own Gaza, nor do we want to. I mean, this would be absolutely insane. You've just had 18 months straight of just vicious bombing of a people, half of which are children. And we're going to be like, yeah, we're going to now swoop in to rubble and own it? Are you out of your mind? Oh, might I add, in a region that already despises us because we spent 20 years bombing them into oblivion. It is the worst idea imaginable. Yes, we can't fix LA, we can't fix New Orleans, we can't fix NYC, but we can fix Gaza. It's nuts.
The talking points from the Zionist Republicans, for lack of a better term, I don't know if that like offends people. I'm just trying to like respectfully classify people like Mark Levin and Alan Dershowitz. He's not a Republican, but he's a left-wing Zionist, whatever. Ben Shapiro, these types, a lot. I'm not saying all of them, but I've heard a talking point from people who listen to them and they're like, I mean, why doesn't Egypt take them? Why doesn't Jordan take? Why don't these people take them? And it's like, does that prove that they're bad people? If you don't, like, say a country of Egypt, do you know how much millions of people coming to their country would affect their economy? Like, we're not talking about America. Egypt doesn't have America's economy. They don't have millions of jobs available. Even we don't want that many immigrants, legal or illegal, now, because we're just like filled with people. So it's like, let's chill out now. And that's America with 300 million people and millions of jobs. You're talking about Egypt, Jordan. They got economies probably the size of like Flint, Michigan. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm not. I don't know.
Probably the economy of Michigan. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that doesn't prove anything. It doesn't mean that they're bad or that like, oh, they don't want to take them. Why not? I don't know, why would a country next door want to take millions of people? Now they have millions of people to home, millions of people to potentially feed or get a job to. That would crash any small country. Like, it's a bad talking point.
It's one of the worst arguments imaginable. And might I add, it's the same argument that the Nazis used. That's exactly what they said. They said, we tried to get America to take in the Jewish people. That, like, does that then justify what the Nazis did? No, it doesn't. It actually makes it worse, because you're just saying that, oh, nobody wanted to take these people, so now we get to do whatever we want to them. Like, that's insane. It is like definitional genocidal language, and it drives me nuts when people say that. And obviously Egypt and Turkey and these other countries have no obligation to assist Israel in ridding them of their problem. Like, that's not how this works. The land is the Palestinians' land, so they get to be there. And that's the answer. I mean, the answer is you guys have to figure out how to work with and live with each other. But I just hate that our argumentation. It's one of the most evil, and like the tone, the insinuation is that these people are so reprehensible that not even their Arab brothers will take them in. That's what they're saying to you, as opposed to, hey, maybe the Arab dudes don't want to assist Israel in just flattening these people, or, as you stated, their economy can't handle it because they don't have jobs for anywhere close to that amount of people. They have unemployment issues already of their own people. It's nuts.
When we talk about our great ally, I noticed something that really was annoying as an American citizen. I read that 2 members of Netanyahu's conservative party in Israel, they wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed, and they basically said America and the West should take in these refugees. And their logic was, why not? You guys already did. So this is the issue. And this is why America and Europe is falling apart, and why I'm doing a video explaining the Tucker Carlson thing, where he said England looks like a country that lost World War II. It does, and so does most of Europe, and so does America. I'm not saying we did, but like, something's off, because it doesn't look like a country that's thriving in many ways. Like, it's on the decline in a lot of categories. So with that being said, it's like, okay, in Israel, not all, but a lot of the people, they care about Israel, as they should. So they're like, why doesn't Europe take a bunch of these refugees? Why doesn't America take? Well, that already kind of messed up Europe, and their vibe is like, well, we don't really care. Get them out of our hands, and then you deal with them. But it's not their job to care about Europe and America. It's America's job to care about America. And what you'll notice is no one even mentions that. It's not the liberals saying that in Israel. It's the conservatives. Like, you just go take them. Okay, you fund the war, we'll displace all these people, you take them. And that feels like the vibe of, oh, and then we'll take over Gaza, a problem that we helped fund, that you helped create. Now we're going to bear the brunt of it. And that's why a lot of people were upset about it. But I don't blame Israelis for thinking that way, because Americans really are, I guess, dumb if Americans are falling for this. Example, like, you get called an anti-Semite if you talk about dual loyalty or dual citizenship. People like some of Trump's biggest donors, they not only have 2 citizenships, one in America and one in Israel, but they go on stage and they say, I am paying, I want Trump to do things for Israel. Like, they have more loyalty to Israel, like, in their own words. Okay, sure. I don't care. But in America, you get called anti-Semitic because they're passing a definition of anti-Semitism that says what I just says is anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
But in Israel, if you were to serve in their Knesset, not only can you not have 2 citizenships, they make you get rid of your other citizenship to make sure you're loyal to Israel. So it's like, their politicians are focused on them. Our politicians are focused on them. Their politicians are passing laws for their country. Our politicians are passing laws for their country. It's like, at this point, but then if you say America seems like it's controlled, that's just classic anti-Semitism. It's like, okay, everything is hate speech, I guess, and nothing's real and nothing matters. Now, let's get back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Well, the part that frustrates me so much is that this is the whole reason Israel came to pass, is that, like, the Jewish people were dealing with what the Palestinians are dealing with, that they were constantly being forced off their land and attacked, and pogroms, and it was like they went through hell. And then you have this Zionist movement where, like, we're going to create a homeland, but, like, now you have this movement of Palestinians that are saying, hey, we need a homeland too. And then you have the Zionists that are just saying, well, your homeland can't be here because we've taken it. And it actually reminds me of generational trauma. How, like, if you've been beaten as a child, you probably end up growing up to beat your children. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like abused people abusing people. And like, I can have sympathy for, a child that's abused, but if you're a child that was abused that grows up to abuse your child, you lose my sympathy. And that's where I'm at with this, where it's like, you don't, just because of your history doesn't mean you have infinite sympathy for me. You can't kill women and children because of what happened to your great grandparents. Sorry. That's not how it works. I don't believe in generational guilt. And that's where I'm at with it. Like, you guys got to figure it out. I want to, like, more than anything, here's my thesis. I don't want to fund it. Okay. I don't want to have any soldiers there. I don't want to pass any laws that are special for you. You can't limit my speech. You can't take my money. Do what you want. Okay. That's it. That's my final offer. So yeah, when Trump said we're going to own Gaza, I had nearly an aneurysm. I was horrified.
With what you're talking about, like trauma, which is very real in a lot of people of all kinds. I remember when the BLM stuff was going around, and Patrice Cullors, one of the lesbians from, lesbians. No, I'm just kidding. Jesse Lee Peterson will be like, radical lesbian. I just did a Trump impression for Jesse Lee. I'm all messed up. But anyway, the woman, the beautiful, gorgeous queen with a Kween of BLM, Patrice Cullors, she held up when she was younger, like a book. And she said, this book is like Mao's book, and Mao Zedong killed tens of millions of people. So that's pretty frightening. But everybody reported that, right? All the right-wing Daily Caller, like, oh my gosh, she's like Mao. So I looked in, I'm like, what book is she holding, right? Nobody did this, of course. They just do like half research. Okay, sure. It was a book written by Eric Mann, who was one of the essentially puppeteers of BLM, who happened to be Jewish. But anyway, I started listening to interviews of him because I was like, oh, she's saying his book's like, that recruited her is like Mao Zedong's book. Like, I need to learn more about this. So then I found an interview of him. And within an interview, what you were talking about with generational trauma, she goes, what made you want to be like a leftist or a revolutionary or whatever? And he goes, my mom told me when I was young that there's a world made up of goyim, which is a phrase for a non-Jew, a word made up of goyim who are trying to hurt you, and you got to stand up to those anti-Semites. So it's like this kid who was one of the puppeteers behind BLM, he was told as a kid that all people that aren't like you are trying to hurt you, and the kid's like 3, 4, 5 years old. Of course, that's going to traumatize you as a kid, and you're going to grow up radical because that's what you're being told. Like, if my mom told me like every other race hates you all the time, then I wouldn't have had like a Muslim best friend growing up, or I wouldn't have had like that's not what I was told. Like, my mom was common sense, but she didn't like traumatize me as a kid. Like, everybody hates you. But like, that is the reality of some people. They end up either projecting or becoming wild, based on what they're told. Yeah.
This is classic identitarian, like child rearing. Like, this is how a KKK member would raise his kid. Like, that is literally what KKK members do with their children. They just go like, I can't even say what they say because we'll get blacklisted. But basically everybody's out to get you, and you got to stick to your own. You got to defend your own. You got to play dirty, do whatever you have to keep yourself and your people and the people that look like you protected. Like, this is the problem with identitarianism, and this is why ultimately, like, I loved what America was, this kind of classical liberal model of, we're not going to go down this identitarian path anymore. We're going to base it off of merit, and that's it. And like, but now it's not exactly working out.
I have a question, because whether it's Israel or white people or Japanese or whatever, like we've been told, especially in America and in Europe, that, diversity is our strength, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like, people like Vivek are now saying it's a nation of ideas. It's not a nation of people or land. It's just about ideas. Do you think there's any merit? Like, I don't care if it's America, Israel, or anything. Is there any merit in your opinion? I have my opinions where it's like, Japan is mostly Japanese. Tokyo is way nicer and safer than any American city is currently, especially major one.
Yeah.
Don't you think that has to do with the fact that they're all Japanese? Like, do you think that if they weren't identitarian and they're just like, let's just let whoever in, like, wouldn't that city get worse?
I do. And this is where the identitarian arguments start to win out, is that like there is genuine in-group preference that, regardless of how I feel, because I was raised in this classical liberal mindset of like just pure meritocracy, and it doesn't matter what you look like. The reality is the vast majority of people on the planet, including most non-white people in America, don't see the world that way. That's not how they function. They go, you look like me, I trust you. You don't look like me, I don't trust you. And that's how it works. So yeah, Japan functions because they're Japanese, and Korea, same thing, and many nations, China too, and they don't allow much immigration. And I think that this is a real problem. This is a real like condemnation of classical liberalism. And if you look at the Konstantin Kissins or the James Lindsays of the world, they are losing their minds over this, because like the Nicholas Fuenteses of the world are having their moment in the sun as they go, see, told you, identitarianism, this is the future. Like I'm still not, I haven't come to a conclusion as to like what I think we ought to do. Like, should we just shut down the border? Like, are we never going to allow anyone that isn't an American to come here again? Like, I don't think that's the answer either. But I do think that open borders has been demonstrated like demonstrably to be a catastrophe. And I know libertarians get mad at me when I say this, but I think I'm right. I think it is obviously a nightmare scenario to just have tens of millions of people come in a 4-year period. It is catastrophic. So now they got to figure it out. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
One thing that I know that we agree on this is for sure, people need to be allowed to talk about stuff. Like in America, if you talk about crime rates in inner cities and it's deemed racist, and you get demonetized and kicked out. Like there was one NFL coach that said he thought the BLM riots were worse than January 6th. That's a totally reasonable opinion. I believe, like if I were a judge or a lawyer, I could make arguments for why one side was worse than the other. But me personally, I agree with him, like just off of like sheer numbers. But I could see like if someone said the other was true, it wouldn't bother me. But you can't have the opinion he had because of race. The anti-Semitism laws, these are special laws for Israel and people of Jewish descent, either ethnically or religiously, that even infringes on the Bible, which says that certain parts of the Bible are anti-Semitic, and certain noticing patterns in banking and media is anti-Semitic, and noticing dual loyalty is anti-Semitic, even if it's true. So I think in a multiracial society, which this is, whether people like it or not, for sure, you cannot allow you can't make speech laws where people are not allowed to talk about race, because then it just builds more distrust and more hate. And that's what we're living in now. And I think the Konstantin Kissins, the Seth Dillons, the James Lindsays, and these type of people, either they're not that smart or they're being disingenuous, but I think they're getting nervous of where the conversation leads. Me, it's like the truth needs to be set free, and then we could have real conversations. But I think when like Tucker questions Winston Churchill, they're afraid of where that might lead to. But I don't think they're based on their own merit. They're not confident in winning these discussions, because to me these are winnable arguments and discussions. But I think
so
that's an issue too, where like America is what it is now. England is what it is now. Germany is what it is now. All these countries are what they are, not what you thought they should be, or what. Like I live in the present, not in the futuristic. Like people are like, I want Thomas Massa to be president. Me too. But he's not going to be right now. Hopefully in the future he can be. So with that being said, what do I think? I do think that there's two things at play. I do think that ethnicity, race, religion, nation, culture, language, I do think these things matter. And, it's hard to really say, because it's like you look at other cultures and communities and it's like, let's just say Japanese, because that's an easy one. Nobody calls me a racist over it. Highly clean, highly educated, highly communal, like beautiful city, but also they have like groupthink patterns that are not very American, right? That's why a lot of people are like, Asians are more into groupthink and they're afraid to like go against the grain. And same with Europe, and America's more like cowboy, First Amendment, Second Amendment. So it's like there's pros and cons to everything. I don't think talking about race is racist or noticing patterns. So I would say there's, I think people can coexist, but this is kind of a modern experiment where it's for sure not working with bad laws, speech laws, and the inability to, or the overuse of double standards.
Yeah, well, I agree with all that. And I also think that it's not working with so many people of different cultural frameworks coming in so rapidly. And this is why I think it has been such a, damning moment for the open borders libertarian camp, is that like you lose what makes America special if you just let whoever come in, regardless of their belief system, and you don't ask them to, acclimate to your culture. Like you lose that. And as a libertarian who values liberty, well, that's a problem. Like, I want people here that share my values because I want to be free. And if I have, tens of millions of people that come here that don't share my values, well, then I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm in a ton of trouble, especially if you have people that perceive me because of my skin color or my gender to be their innate enemy. Like, think about how crazy that is, that you have, even though we're, straight white men are still the plurality of this country. It's not by a lot. And by and large, they are the only group of people that are actually functioning in a colorblind fashion. And everybody else is like, these are our oppressors. Well, what do you think happens when we're the minority? like, it's not pretty. Look at South Africa. Look at what they're doing to the South African people right now. And I'm not saying that's, inevitably going to happen here, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. If you function off of grievance politics and you say that these straight white people are such evil demons, and then all of a sudden they're the minority and you have state power to actually go after them, well, really bad things can happen.
Right.
So I think that's what Elon Musk has realized as a South African himself. And I think it guides and it molds much of his politics. And I don't think he's wrong. And that doesn't mean that I want to be the oppressor as a consequence. I don't want to conquer people. I want to just embrace people that embrace my value set. And my value set is basically enshrined in the Bill of Rights. I get to defend myself. I get to speak freely. You don't get to take my money. These are the things that I want people that have those values, that work hard, that will achieve, that will produce. I don't mind that you don't look like me and you come here and you do those things and you share those values. But if you come here and you don't share those values, I've got a big problem with it, because you get to then basically deteriorate the quality of my life and of my family and of my children. And that's not okay either. So we got to find a balance.
I think that's more intelligent libertarianism, because in general as well, I notice certain patterns and certain statistics, and at bare minimum, I want to have a conversation about them and not be called hateful. For example, you could use AI to do this because it'll filter it for you. Look up the safest city in every state, look up the most dangerous city in every state. You're going to notice racial demographics in both of those, in almost every category, in almost every area. We could have a complex conversation about why, but what I'm not going to do is pretend that it's not happening when I know it's happening. For example, if there's a word that says that I'm being hateful to somebody else because I notice a pattern, why is there not a word for them being hateful to me? That's not equal. When it comes to certain people, like you said, they don't share my values. They don't share my religion. They don't share my thought process, my thoughts on liberty. And if I realize that they don't in numbers, and those numbers flip the demographics, then we're going to lose everything. That's just basic math and basic statistics. And, that's why the speech laws, in my opinion, exist, and these double standards exist. It's not to stop people from lying. It's to stop people from telling the truth, because with a more honest conversation, things will change. And I did a whole live stream on this, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but I've realized, living in Los Angeles, watching different people protest with foreign flags blocking traffic, you realize that not everybody wants the same thing. And when you go around the world, a lot of the world is a place I want to visit. A lot of the world isn't. Doesn't mean I hate them, but I don't want America to be a place I don't want to visit. And currently, almost every major city of ours is a place I don't want to visit. And I'm embarrassed. Singapore's nice. Yeah. Dubai's nice. Cities in Saudi Arabia to some extent are nice, but that's a different story. But it's Tokyo's nice. Do American politicians have any plan to make our cities nice and clean and safe? Because it's possible, but they don't. It's what is this new America being built? It's not something that I'm comfortable with. And as an American, I'm embarrassed that our cities are so shitty. That's embarrassing to me. And I want to get to the bottom of why.
Too, bro.
And I think the answer has a lot to do with mindset, the past, the present, culture, ethnicity, religion, families, fathering. These are all part of that puzzle. And I don't want to be told that any part of that puzzle is hateful, because it's not. It's just the truth.
I totally agree. And, I also think that, just from my more puritanical libertarian, perspective, the thing that bothers me most about the hardline Trump supporters is that they see these cities declining and they just go this is all about immigration. And they don't give enough credence to the other aspects of corruption in our government that have created the paradigm by which our culture has decayed. And it's not exclusively immigration. This is also my critique of Nick Fuentes. He talks, basically exclusively about this stuff, and they never give enough credence to inflation and central banking. Like, well, maybe Nick does. He talks about central banks sometimes because of the people, but like that is a big aspect of why our culture has decayed. Is that now because we have such an inflationary environment, you have both parents that end up working, or you end up not even having kids, you end up not getting married, you end up not being able to afford a house. Like, these are all product of central banking. So I think that what we need is a more holistic answer. We need to deal with the inflation, but we also need to deal with the cultural framework in terms of immigration. And this is where I lost like probably 20% of my audience by ultimately deciding to vote for Trump a couple months ago. People were furious with me. But I think I'm right. I think this is the problem with libertarianism, is that like they're not dealing in reality. And if you just go like, well, we believe that people have a right to go wherever they want, and who cares? The government is just imaginary lines on a piece of paper. Well, here's the reality. That's not the way you live. You live under a system where the people that come here are ultimately going to be able to vote. And even if they can't vote, they still, through the whatever it's called, where they count the people, they're still going to add additional congressional apportionment to blue states, which means that your rights are going to deteriorate. And the Democrats are doing this very intentionally. And like, they don't give enough credence to it. It's ridiculous. It's suicidal, honestly.
We'll talk about the election stuff and Trump's accomplishments in a second. I agree with you. Like, I'm on an island of misfit toys because I lose a lot of people. Like, I don't know if it was libertarians or truthers that are into the vaccine, but I got like some of the most psychotic and like evil backlash. And I say evil because certain people that I've met in person were like doxing me and doing like crazy stuff where I'm like, because I voted for Donald Trump, like, you're a psychopath. And they're like, oh, it's because of my opinions. Like, no, it's because of your actions. You're so egotistical. You think just because you think something politically that makes you like a good person. Like, you're nuts. I hate you. But in general, it's like when it comes to people and certain things, like I don't like to use this as a derogatory thing, because everybody does like far right, far left, but like the people that are further right, I agree with them on some things, but like none of them understood pharmaceuticals like at all. So what I'm saying? Like, a lot of them like thought they were like awesome. And it was like, it's like, this is why I do my own show. It's like, I'm not responsible. Like, just because I agree with them on a few things or disagree, it's like, I don't know why, but they're so focused on race, which I'm fine with. I don't care if they do, but it's like, you know nothing about pharmaceuticals or personal health. Like, I could balance all of these things. And I think you two, you're able to balance 6 topics at once. Other people are specialists in 1 or 2 topics, which there's nothing wrong about, especially if you're right about stuff. But that's like, people are like, you're like him, you're this. And I'm like, you can call me what you want, but I'm still going to be who I was. So we'll talk about Trump's accomplishments and the Adelson stuff. But just to wrap it up, I guess, I'll say my final thoughts on the Gaza thing, and then you can say yours. One, the speech laws in America, I'm always going to talk about, because it's outside of even that situation. We need to be able to talk about it, protest, and speak our mind about America being sovereign. When it comes to Gaza, I mean, to displace 2 million people would be a massively radical move that would cause a lot of tension. Like, we're starting to get along with Saudi Arabia and these Arab rich countries, because they're putting on shows. They control a lot of sports now. And for the most part, they're trying to branch out and be more westernized and get along with us. And things are going good between the UFC and them, et cetera. Boxing, I watch golf. So it's like, there's a way for us to strike a deal with these countries and really be at peace with the Middle East. Trying to displace 2 million Palestinians and just shove them into countries would be insane. I don't care what people say or what people think because they watch Fox News. Like, you got brainwashed to think it's okay to kill 30, 40,000 women and children, and that makes you a demon. And, you're going to have to think about that and really think about who you are, because I think so many people mean well, but they're watching the wrong programming, that they don't even know that this is happening. Like, they don't even know that our allies and our taxpayer dollars are just bombing women and children. And then you bomb all these people to then just take their land and kick them out. To me, I've known this was the plan for 10 years, and I'm not going to pretend like I haven't. So it's like, they could say this happened 2 years ago, or the entire conflict started when Ben Shapiro said it started. Sure, that's for people that believe him. For me, how did I know 5 years ago that Israel wanted that land? Was I just coincidentally right? No, because if you read enough, research enough, and listen to people, Dave Rubin and these types, where they're just trying to defend themselves. That was never true. I never believed that. I did enough research to realize that you're telling me they just want to gatekeep their spot and attack people from within. That's understandable. But that, I don't believe that was ever the plan. I believe the plan was expand, because that's what's actually been happening. If you're not programmed by fake Republican media, that's what they've been doing. If we weren't involved and our taxpayers weren't funding the killing of innocent women and children, and Justin Amos's family and people in our government's family that's there getting killed by these weapons, then, that's a different, there's things going on in Nigeria that I'm not even aware of because it's not our taxpayer dollars. So, if Israel and Palestine want to fight, that's on them. I'm not stopping Israel, but we're funding Israel. We are supporting them. We're passing speech laws for them. One of the most damaging spies in U.S. history, Jonathan Pollard, he was sent back on Sheldon Adelson's jet back to Israel. Literally one of Trump's biggest donors and the GOP's mega donor. A foreign spy goes on their jet and flies back to their country. And that's not even in the news.
It's unbelievable.
Why is it not in the news? Because it's status quo now. It's so normal for our country. What does that mean if that's normal? It means don't say it, because saying it is an act of anti-Semitism, which just so happens to be speech laws passed through America, which just so happens to be in every policy of social media, which just so happens to be a prison sentence in 12 countries. Who do you think's controlling all this stuff? Don't talk about it. It's just so hateful. That's why there's speech laws that send you to prison in 12 of our allied countries, and they're trying to push them in America. But don't think or talk about it, because Mark Levin's Liberty Report told you you're a real patriot if you bomb the kid. It's like, wake up, folks.
Yeah, dude, I feel you. Good rant. I don't have much to add to that, but I do want to ask you though, have you done enough research into these anti-Semitism task force stuff that Trump passed? Because I haven't looked into it. Is it bad?
Yeah. So just to summarize it real quick, it is setting the president to deport people who are not U.S. citizens. They're here on visa, but not protesting anything or protesting America, specifically protesting Israel. So if you're a foreign citizen in our country protesting America, technically you wouldn't really be in trouble, only if you protest Israel. Also, it is, it's pushing those speech rules in again, but it's a very gray area. So it's like they're also targeting schools, because a lot of schools get federal funding. They're saying you can't get the federal funding unless you're loyal to Israel. So this has been talked about with the BDS laws for like 10 years. It's basically, in America, you have to take a pledge to Israel. If you don't take a pledge to Israel, you get called anti-Semitic. If you're a politician, you get called anti-Semitic. If you're in the press, they try to ruin your life and they dox you. If you're in politics and you won't take the donor money, they try to ruin your life. If you're a school, you have to pledge loyalty to Israel and make sure that your school is not allowing protests of Israel but you could protest America. You could protest Republicans and Trump and Elon Musk and our goods, and you could boycott American goods, but you can't boycott Israeli goods because they're totally not controlling everything.
Well, this is why it was such a gaslighting experience to have, Constantine Kisin and James Lindsay and these other guys trying to call, Candace Owens and whatever the woke right, because it's like what made woke was the, obvious grievance politics of the left. And like, what is the obvious grievance politics of the right? Well, it's to protect Jewish people. Like that's the left is like, you have to have hate speech laws and hate crime laws, and you got to protect minorities and black people. And then the right wing, the exact same principle, but it's only applies to this one group of people. And it's just like, that's why you guys are the woke right, because you don't believe in equal treatment under the law. You want special treatment for one group of people. So it's everybody else in the middle is the normal people, as far as I'm concerned. And then everybody else is woke. Like that's woke shit. That's not American. And it's just so frustrating. They try and call me woke for saying, no, I actually believe in equal treatment under the law.
It's inversion and it's projection. They're doing what they're accusing everyone else of, being woke. And the thing is too, like they say that they're protecting Jewish people, which is a beautiful thing to do, but that's not what these laws are doing. Because if you read the laws, I have dozens of Jewish friends. Not one of them will ever really get to use this law in their life. Like there's no real things, unless they just want to cry hate speech, which none of my friends do that. It's for Mark Zuckerberg. It's for George Soros. It's for Miriam Adelson. It's for people who are like, it doesn't say powerful. Your friend who owns the deli or your friend who's a hardworking American patriot gets these things. It says you can't talk about banking. You can't talk about media. You can't talk about influencing politics. That's what lobbyists do. And it's not exclusive to just one group. It's pharmaceuticals. There's billionaires of other ethnic groups. But at the same time, it's like, two of the biggest, besides Elon Musk now that he's entered, it's like the left-wing billionaires, George Soros. The right-wing billionaires, the Adelson family. They're influencing politics. They both happen to be that group. So when you come and say, listen, you could be the most pro-Israel person, you could literally be Jewish yourself, and you could say George Soros is influencing politics. Go Google those things and you'll find a bunch of articles calling people anti-Semitic. The US State Department, I did a whole video on this. The US State Department called India, the most pro-Israel country besides us probably, anti-Semitic because they said that George Soros was bankrolling politicians in India, which he probably was if they were saying it. Like, why would they just randomly say that? But they shared some sort of puppet meme and they're like, that's classic anti-Semitism. So the US State Department called one of our allies or one of our not enemies in the world anti-Semites and basically tried to enforce hate speech in their country because they were talking about George Soros. But Republicans don't realize this because they're getting brainwashed by Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity. And they don't get this, or they're like, no, that's not what it's for. It's to stop Hamas. It is not. It is to protect people like George Soros from criticism or accusations of influencing politics.
Right.
Read the law.
And this is not just like protecting some random poor kid that grew up in the New York slums. This is about the most powerful people on the planet, some of them. So yeah, do they need additional legal protections? Really? Do you think George Soros is like, really, he needs to have special treatment that we can't talk about his business operations or his influence operations all over the world? We can't talk about that? Like,
right. On. And then this is where it really pisses me off because I've got it down to a science now where it's like, I just know so much about these laws that I could just see the hypocrisy. Dave Smith, who we're both friends with, you're better friends with him, but it's like, he is a Jewish American who, in my opinion, so clearly has loyalty to America that there's no, and I'm sure some people still do because they're assholes, but it's like, there's no reason to accuse Dave Smith of dual loyalty because he's a Jewish American who I consider just a straight American. Like, he's such an honest person. Yep. But here's the thing. He gets slandered constantly by Jewish groups and Jewish people on the left and the right. And they call him anti-Semitic and they call him all sorts of names. And it's like, you pass a hate speech law. The hubris of this is insane to me. They pass a hate speech law which says you're not allowed to accuse Jewish citizens of dual loyalty. That's for the ones that actually have dual loyalty and they don't want you to talk about it. Someone like Dave Smith comes around to prove that not all Jews do have dual loyalty because they don't. It's not true. I don't even think it's near 50%. But in general, it's like he comes out and he's like, I don't have loyalty to Israel. And they're like, screw you. So it's like you pass a law to say one thing and then you get mad when that exists. Like, do you want every Jewish person to have loyalty to Israel? You're mad that Dave doesn't? But then why are you passing a law that says that they don't have to have loyalty to Israel? Like it's so... Well,
and if you're so bothered by the conspiracy theory that you guys all have dual loyalty, well, then why, when one of you doesn't have dual loyalty, do you point it out? Like, you should actually lift Dave up and be like, look, see, we don't all have monolithic thinking, we don't all have dual loyalty. Right. But yeah, that's not how it works. And I mean, this is my frustration with the more identitarian, further right wing folks like the Fuentes camp, is that like they've chosen to essentially go to war with Dave as opposed to viewing him as an ally. And it's just so stupid. Like, Dave is almost perfectly in alignment with like what they would like to see done with foreign policy, which is America first. We don't fund it. We don't arm it. We get the hell out of there. Like, that's the answer. But because he's Jewish, they still have to, try and throw him under the the bus. And it's very frustrating because Dave's very good at explaining the Israel-Palestine situation, and they ought to, really appreciate his efforts, but they don't. So it is what it is.
I've noticed, I can't speak on that one because I haven't fully seen it, but it's like there's purists everywhere where, like, I did a lot of work for pharmaceutical stuff for years, and people, like, they turned on me in a second because I voted for Trump. And that's just that there's people that are so attached to certain things that, like, they just fight all the time. So I'm really grateful. Like, I've avoided a lot of drama because it feels like people that like to fight, they always find each other and fight. And it's like, I hate that because, like you said, whether I agree or disagree, it's not that big of a deal. But there are, what I noticed when I went on more far right shows, like back in the day, and I'm not saying it as a smear tactic, I'm just trying to classify like further right than most Republicans. All the comments were just calling me a Jew the whole time. Like, I'm not Jewish, but it's like, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of being honest about stuff if you're just so erratically just like loose and like, it's like, if I was, I would just say it. I don't care. Dave Smith, like, it's not, I tell people I'm Polish, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Czechoslovakian, I'm Italian, like It is what it is. I've never taken a full DNA test. Who knows? Maybe I got like 2% African or something, so I could just start coming flexing out here. But no, I don't. I'm probably not. But I'm just saying, it's like, that's just the reality of, like, even my comment section sometimes is like pretty crazy on YouTube. But it's like there's 5 people repeating that, over and over. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. But definitely some people kind of spoil a good thing, and they just are like mad at everyone all the time. Like, well, that's definitely part of it.
I just think when you come up with an ironclad thesis as to how the world works, you're going to miss a lot. And like, I think that for them, every problem, they go, that's Israel. They don't say that. They say the other thing. But so yeah, when all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I think that you get a lot of things wrong, and you start using your hammer on things that aren't nails.
Well, I think that's why they miss the pharmaceutical stuff too. Cause like like I saw the one guy, I don't feel like starting a fight, so I'm not even gonna name who it is, but someone on Twitter that's like really identitarian and really like pro-white, they like were so pro-vaccine. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like,
oops.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I completely disagree. Like, but here's the thing is, like, I don't really watch these people anyway. I kind of see what they say on Twitter, but I don't know. They were just going off like, you can't believe you don't want the vaccine. I was like, all right, well, we don't agree, but
dude, all right, you got to tell me about this Luka Doncic, Miriam Adelson thing. This is wild.
I'm not going to get into, like, I'm not going to make up a theory, but I did notice so many people were like, because for those who don't know, basketball, Luka Doncic, I think he's 25 years old. I think he's like Slovenian, European dude, probably one of the best players in the last 15, 20 years. He doesn't win as much as maybe he could, but he's a beast, and he's young. He got huge blockbuster trade. He went to Los Angeles, and then Anthony Davis went to Dallas. And it seems like he was really sad because apparently he just bought like a $20 million house in Dallas. Nobody told this kid. Like, this is unprecedented in sports too. Like, usually a little bit of something, and they're posting on the Dallas Mavericks Twitter page. They were posting him getting out of a car with a cowboy hat like 5 hours before he got traded. So it's like, this guy in sports, there's very little loyalty, because the teams could trade you whenever. So it's ruining NBA. There are no rivalries. All the players get along. It's boring. This kid seemed like one of the only guys who actually had loyalty to the city. You know what I'm saying? Yep. He loved Dallas, and they just traded him away. And everyone starts blaming Mark Cuban because they're anti-Semites. No, I'm just kidding. They're blaming Mark Cuban because he used to fully own the Mavericks, and now he doesn't. He traded it to I guess he sold it to Miriam Adelson. So you're still anti-Semitic if you talk about this stuff. But in general, no one really picked up on that because it happened so recently, and Mark Cuban's so famous, and Miriam is not so outwardly with the team and such. But I started seeing these theories like she wants to do this with the casinos in Vegas. And at first I was just kind of ignoring it because I was like, I don't even know if that's true. But then I started looking into it, and I was like, all right, let me see like what part of this is true. And I looked up gambling, and her family owns the Sands casinos, and she's pushing for gambling in Texas. Me, myself, I've told my audience this, not just as a Christian, but I think just as like a decent person, outside of even my religious thoughts. Like, I would never push gambling on other people, and I would never sell it. I like to sports gamble. It's not a great habit, but I do like to do it. I would never, even if DraftKings or FanDuel or one of these companies gave me $1 billion, I would turn it down morally. I would feel horrible if I was pushing gambling on men or anyone. So I don't do it. She's pushing it on Texas, which is crazy because Texas is super conservative. They're one of the Republican states that hasn't taken on gambling. And it's like she comes to the state, pushes gambling, which is very immoral. And then Luka gets traded, and like nobody even knows that he got traded. So some people are saying that she's trying to do this in order to leverage the state to allow pro gambling so she could make millions and billions of dollars off of it, because there's so much money in sports gambling. But I still don't see how the Luka trade, like, I can understand her threatening that to try and get something done, but I don't understand how that gives her leverage. Like, didn't she just ship her leverage off? Well, that's the thing. I'm not gonna like make claims like everyone else. All I'll say is like she just got to the team within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban, apparently there's a quote where Mark Cuban was like, I'd leave my wife before I left Luka Doncic. They're like something crazy. We're like, dude, relax, bro. Like, I would not say that, but it was like something like he never wanted to get rid of Luka. So, they own the team, and then all of a sudden Luka's gone. Two people I think that need to sign off on a trade. would be the GM, and definitely the owner has a lot of say. So like, why trade Luka? I mean, maybe it's a play because they think Anthony Davis is a better fit, in the short term. It could just be strategy for the team. But I just found out, this is the part that I wanted to say for sure. She is trying to legalize gambling in Texas. But does that relate to the trade, or would that, would this improve it or not? And some of the theories that go further, like she's trying to do this in order to move the team somewhere else. I don't know about that, but we'll see. Time will tell. So I mean, just thought
if they move to Vegas, then there may be more fire to that smoke. But
right.
What I found interesting about it, and like for your audience that isn't basketball fans, like you and I are both basketball fans. I think I'm a huge fan. Like, it is unheard of to trade a superstar in their prime. Like, you might see a superstar get shipped out in his 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, year in the league. This kid he's going to be 26 next month. He started playing professionally in Europe when he was a teenager, like when he was 15 years old. He was playing against grown men. He's a total freak, a total basketball savant. Last year, he averaged 33, 9, and 9, which is like insane numbers. I mean, it's basically, he's like a combination of like Kobe, Magic, and LeBron, kind of all rolled into one, except he doesn't have the athleticism, obviously, of Kobe, but he does have the killer instinct of Kobe. So he's just a very kind of a one-of-one, very special. Reminds me a lot of the I'm blanking on his name, the center, the Serbian center.
Jokic.
Yeah, Jokic. He kind of reminds me of that, just a kind of like a revolution at the position. I don't know why I'm going on this long rant. I just really want to talk about basketball because I love basketball.
It's a strange move to trade somebody that good, that's that young, and maybe in the short term, it could be a good trade because they needed a center. But it's just, it's unheard of to trade somebody that young for somebody older. Like Anthony Davis is quite a bit older. Like
he's 32.
Luka Doncic has at least 10 more like amazing years in him. So people are saying it doesn't make sense. And
AD's got 2 or 3 years, and Luka's got at least a decade. Like, it's very rare to see that trade. Now, I will say this: I do think that Dallas has a better chance of winning the championship this year with AD. But beyond that, like, no, this is just a catastrophic trade.
Right.
Very, very strange. But the other point I wanted to make real quick is that Luka was looking at a 5-year supermax, which would be a record-breaking $345 million contract, which is like $70 million a season. As a consequence of being traded, you're no longer eligible for the supermax. So not only did he just buy this, $10-20 million mansion in Dallas, but he just got $120 million stolen out of his back pocket for his contract over the next 5 years. So Dallas did him dirty, bro.
They might not want to pay him. And I mean, it is messed up that he was so loyal to the city, but I would say this, like, being that it's the owner, I noticed that she was pushing gambling on Texas. That's confirmable. Everything else is speculative, but I know that she pays Trump to get things done for Israel. And, I think the hate speech laws have to do with that as well. So I just found it funny that like she got involved in like the crazy controversy of like Luka, like the whole, it's like with after the war and when the the retaliation started going on Gaza, like it made like hundreds of millions of people that never even thought about Israel, Palestine pay attention. And, I'm not trying to be rude, but the more you pay attention, I think most people that aren't like just like Fox News watchers, they ended up like, it was bad PR. Let's just put it that way. So it's like, it's just kind of wild where it's like you buy this team, right? And it's like, what's the worst PR possible for, it's like trading away the player.
Trade your generational talent. Let's get rid of the greatest player that Dallas has seen since Dirk Nowitzki. Great idea. I think they're going to regret it. I mean, they're like, he comes in, 15, 20 pounds overweight every offseason. It's like, okay, so you're going to trade the third best player in the NBA because of that? Oh, man. Wow.
I'm just going to play this real quick because someone in the chat, I guess the whole world does revolve around you because there's hundreds of people watching this, but I'm going to play it. He said, when did Trump say he wanted to own Gaza? Well, here's the clip. I just want to play it for 15 seconds.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site.
So there it is. Let's get into
Trump. He says it.
Right. Let's get into Trump's accomplishments because we talked about the Gaza stuff. We talked about, Trump's donor being involved in the Luka trade to some extent. And, now I guess retroactively, I saw you on X and you were super impressed with what Trump was doing the first 2 weeks outside of a few things. Can you, like, off the top, can you just list, because I'm sure you probably know a lot, like what do you think were the best things that he did? You could just start listing them off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is not in any particular order, but he got a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine within 24 hours of him walking in there. I didn't see that coming. Nobody really did. That's great news. As long as we don't end up owning Gaza, that's one of the best things he's done. Immediate executive order barrage to he gets rid of DEI in all federal departments. He goes after and freezes USAID funding, which is ultimately the regime change funding of the CIA all over the world. It's also responsible for the Maidan Revolution, which led to Russia's invasion, which put us on the precipice of World War III. This is a much bigger deal than just like going after waste here and there. This is about like stopping war between nuclear powers. Big deal. Huge win. Most Republicans don't understand the depth of how USAID functions. So like, just take my word for it. It's massive. It's a massive deal. This is why they're panicking, because this is how their entire, grift works. What else? I thought that, even though I'm not a huge, advocate for his tariff plans, I thought that utilizing tariff threats to get our neighbors to negotiating table, which he seems to have successfully done with Panama, Mexico, Canada to a certain extent. I think that's all good. I think that we need to secure our border. I think that we cannot have tens of millions of people coming in every presidential term and expect America to sustain itself. Like, it's going to implode us. So I thought that was a step in the right direction. He freed 1,500 J6ers. Thought that was a tremendous righting of a egregious injustice. He freed Ross Ulbricht. I'm personal friends with Lynn Ulbricht, his mother. It was one of the most touching, beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life to see, political action from my group of people, the libertarians. Shout out to Angela McArdle and everybody else that was responsible for negotiating that deal with the Trump camp. But the fact that Trump followed through with that, what meant a lot to people like me to see one of our people, walk free. So I could keep going, man, but that's a good starter list.
Yeah, I'll add the border stuff because I try to explain it because, and I'm sorry for people, maybe if you hear it multiple times, I understand that happens. But what I noticed from X and other influencers, we're all competing for people's attention. And I'm not seeking necessarily attention, but it really bothers me when people are wrong about something and they get a bunch of people to be wrong and then nobody knows what's going on. It's like really annoying. So with the border stuff, the libertarians and the people in the truther community that are saying like elections don't matter at all, I don't agree. Like, I think they don't matter on some cases. And me and Clint are two of the more honest people in this game. Like, we'll agree with you when you're telling the truth. Like, name the things that you can't vote your way out of. Agree. I'm not saying you can vote your way out of everything. I'm just saying some things matter, some things don't. Like, federal judges matter. I left a city of Los Angeles and I went to Orange County, and different prosecutor, less crime, cleaner, safer, like everything's better. Because it's different politics as well as demographics, but in general as well. Look at what they did in El Salvador, different demographic than America, more Hispanic. He cleaned it up with I wouldn't say force, but I would say legislation and policy
and a little bit of force
and force too. But it's like, it's there's different things need to be done for different places. But the fact that he was able to basically eradicate most crime in El Salvador, the murder capital of the world, it's inspirational. It means if he could do it, anybody could do it. I mean, that was like a really bad place per capita. I think literally at one point, the worst in the whole world.
It was.
That guy deserves an award.
It went from the worst to close to the best in terms of murder per capita. It's a remarkable achievement. Setting aside my libertarian puritanical instincts of like, you can't just throw everybody in jail. But yeah, I mean, what he did was amazing.
One of the greatest achievements for a leader in modern history, to go from the murder capital of the world to one of the safer places in the world. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the true test of Bukele, just a quick interjection, is that will he relinquish and revert once he actually he's already addressed the issue, but is he going to continue to have extraordinarily hard policies, or will he liberalize a little bit? I think that's going to be the interesting, thing to tell. Because oftentimes once people take that amount of power, they don't really let it go. So that's going to be interesting.
To me, it's like, will people act right though? Because it's a two-way street. It's like politicians can be corrupt, but people can also be corrupt. So it's like, can you act right? Like, you don't want them to overstep and start arresting innocent people. But the reality of certain areas, like say like New Orleans, like what would it take to make New Orleans safe?
You got to arrest a lot of people. Like that's the truth.
The right people, but and also scare people that are trying to do murder and stuff. Where I know in Orange County, there's video compilations where people are like, the cop will come and be like, you got arrested in Orange County. This ain't LA County. And they're like, oh shoot, we shouldn't have crossed over. Like it's known to a lot of the criminals, like stay in LA. They're stupid, you know? So
exactly.
There's multiple layers to it.
And the DAs in LA will just let you go. So
right. Yeah, it's a joke. But with the border stuff, what I was saying is people will say like this election doesn't matter at all. To me, that's not a truther. That's just a half-baked intellectual that thinks they're smarter than they are, because it's like, I'll give you everything that doesn't change. I'll give you everything that Trump does wrong. But to say that none of it matters is just not true. I have friends that work at the border. There's a difference in the Trump policy, no question. Not just in him deporting and making the whole culture shift to where people know they can't get away with it anymore, but there is catch and release policies and like come to America and get a lawyer, where Trump's like, stay there. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't it makes a difference. So I think with I don't know the politically correct way to say this, but the anchor baby policy, he came out and said, that was originally for slaves. That's wasn't for the whole world to just exploit America. And he's probably right. Like it probably was for the people here, not like this, now everybody finds a way to exploit the system. And it's like illegal immigration is bad, but legal loopholes need to be revisited. And we do need to make it easy for good people to get here. But at the same time, it's like we've been exploited for so long, where he comes in and he just really looks at everything and he's the real adult in the room. So even with all this news, I don't regret voting for him. And I'm not going to, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, it's like, dude, I get it. But you're having this conversation now. When Biden was in office and tens of thousands of women and children were dying in Gaza, it's like, it's not like that was better. Like they were doing the same thing. It's just there's no national conversation about it that makes sense, because it's just like kind of doesn't even seem like he's a real leader. So there's no point in even holding him accountable. Like you're blaming other people. You're trying to figure out who's puppeting him. Yeah. And
we still don't really know. Like it definitely wasn't Biden though. But I just wanted to say, like, look, I will regret my Trump vote if he invades Iran, has a hot war with Russia or China. If he has another 2020 lockdown, Trump can do things that will absolutely lose my support. If he actually takes ownership of Gaza, 1.8 million Palestinians, and just like, I don't know, tells them they all have to leave or allows them to become like, I can't imagine, like all of that seems so far-fetched. So I'm not even going to go there, but there are things that Trump can do that will lose my support. And I will condemn every step of the way, everything he does that I don't like. And a lot of Trump supporters hate that. And I don't give a shit, because I think that's what you have to do to hold your politicians to account. But I'll just say this. First 2 weeks of Donald Trump's presidency have been the best of any president in my lifetime. Look, it's a very low bar, but that's the reality. And I think that any libertarian that's being honest with themselves has to admit that's true. Does that mean he's perfect? No. Does it mean he's better than everyone ever in our lifetimes, including himself in 2016? The answer is yes. Trump has done a very good job. We'll see. It's very early. But I'm very optimistic. I think if he gets Kash Patel in the FBI, if he gets RFK Jr. into HHS, if he gets Tulsi Gabbard into DNI, like, these are reforms that mean something, mean a lot. So the doomers that say, "Oh, these elections don't matter. You don't have a vote. You don't have a voice. You don't have a choice," you're just wrong. Okay, you're wrong. Like, this is going to change the trajectory of this country's history, and I think for the better. That's TBD, but that's my opinion. We'll see.
I agree. And this is my friendly warning to the Trump team, not like ominous, like threat or anything. I'm just saying like a literal just reality, similar to how a lot of the senators, the Republican ones, they're going to vote for Trump's nominees, not because they want to, but because they're nervous of losing power, because everybody is smart enough to figure out who's not going to vote for RFK and Tulsi, and they're going to probably vote them out. I think we're really good with the internet and like tracing all this public stuff. With that being said, same with Trump. Like, of course, Trump's coalition of winning, there's a lot of things involved. It's great that he gave the HHS to RFK, because I don't think he would have won the popular vote without RFK. I think that was like 10 to 20 million votes of like, okay, massive. This is great.
He may not even won the election without RFK.
I think so. And I think that when it comes to how popular Trump is, yes, of course, there are the over 50 crowd that's like 90% pro-Israel. There's the Hasidics and the Christian Zionists and whatever. But also, you have to remember, Trump won Muslim counties that voted for Rashida Tlaib. Like there, and people said, "Oh, that proves that the election was rigged." Because how could they vote for Rashida Tlaib and Trump? Because of Palestine and Israel, they perceive Trump as a deal maker and Biden as the person who just got 40,000 people, or Kamala as the person who just got 40,000 people killed.
And guess what? They were right. They perceived him correctly. He is the deal maker. He got a ceasefire and day one.
Right. And it doesn't, like, people don't realize this is a problem with a lot of people. They think that everyone thinks like them. And that's how you become a selfish idiot. Like, everyone doesn't think like you. Doesn't mean you have to like them, but it's like, that's how they were thinking. So Trump's coalition, of course, he's got the over 50 Zionists, but most people under 50 are not as Zionist as the old boomers. And the truth is, he got them and them, which made the coalition to win the popular vote. If he thinks that this Gaza thing is popular, he's going to lose millions of Muslims who voted for him, millions of Christians that voted for him that aren't Zionists, like millions of libertarians that are, pro-America first. Like, he's losing a huge part of that crowd. And the only way that he can, or the Republicans can lose the next election, is if he doesn't deliver. If he delivers, the Democrats are so dumb and stupid, Republicans can win for the next 20 years. Like, Democrats are so dumb. And now that I've kind of criticized the Republicans and warned them that they could lose the next election if they go too far on this, the Democrats, like, they're such fake opposition, them being so dumb and fake and stupid. It's like, it annoys me, because it's like, now they're wrong about almost everything and they're just annoying and they're losing. And then Republicans are right about a lot, but they're also wrong about a lot. And like, when you try to poke at this, people are like, "Oh, are you saying Kamala could have done a better job?" No, I voted for Trump. No, I'm not saying that. Well, the left says this. Okay, but like, everything is not just two options. So it's like the Democrats, in their pursuit of just being so gosh darn annoying and stupid, they're like ruining everything. It's like the balance of America doesn't work when one side is this stupid. So it's like, I wish there was a real opposition to some of the things Republicans were doing, but there's not. It's like the left is not even a real, like, there's almost no value there. It's like, how did they get so bad, and will they ever get better? That's
I forget. I was talking to some prominent lefty on a Twitter space. I can't remember who it was for the life of me, but I made this point, actually, like almost verbatim, that like, it's super important that the Democrats find their souls again. Like, we need an opposition party that is grounded in free speech, anti-war, like all of, like, not so crazy about throwing people in prison for life off of drug charges. Like, there needs to be a balance. You need to have the Democrats that actually represent a more kind of soft government model, which is not at all what they are today. They are like the most authoritarian, psychotic, just driven by demons, as best I can tell. But a lot of Democrats in the 90s were good. Like, they had a lot of good ideas and good additions to the conversation, or at least debate topics that needed to be actually heard. They've lost that. They're worthless. I mean, you listen to even Bill Maher, he gets, these huge standing ovations as he says, like, yeah, you guys have gone a little too far. It's like, hey, Bill, 20 years too late, bro. Like, where you been? I guess I appreciate it, but Jesus Christ, like, wake up. But yeah, like, I think this is really important. Like, we need to have genuine opposition. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point, it's the Republicans versus the Libertarians. Like, that's the opposition. Like, that's where we're at in terms of dialogue. And I think that those conversations are still very good, but we've got 70 plus million people that are total lunatics that voted for the Democrats, that voted for Kamala Harris, one of the most reprehensible, detestable, unimpressive, virtually unintelligible orators I've ever seen in my life. She got 70 million votes. Like we still need to make some progress here, because like, the fact that that lady was even able to sniff the White House is horrifying. The fact that Joe Biden was the president of the United States is horrifying. Like, we've got to do a lot to make sure that this doesn't go the wrong direction. A lot of that rides on Trump. If Trump does as well as he's been doing and as well as he's capable of doing, then the Republicans should have no reason to fear losing the midterms. They ought to wipe out the Democrats in the midterms. But the Lindsey Grahams, the Mitch McConnells of the world, they can make them lose. And the way you make them lose starting day one is to not get Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK Jr. in there.
I want to address one comment real quick, and then I want to move on to a more interesting question. Duke, in the comments, he said, supporting Trump equals supporting Israel and its genocide. you have to understand that this is not a topic you can vote your way out of. Tens of thousands of people died under Joe Biden. So if your plan is to just isolate yourself from people that agree with a lot of what you're saying by just harping the fact, like, if you vote, you're part of it. It's like you're just as dumb as a left-wing protester. So it's like you can make me not like you, not respect you, and never read another comment that you said again. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to say that Trump is involved in it and he's working for his donors. But if you try to attack every person that voted for Trump that knows what you're talking about, but at the same time knows that you can't vote your way out of it, you're not actually helping. Like, your ego is bigger than your brain. Your emotions are bigger than your logic. And there's no point in, like, it doesn't make any sense to do that. Like, if RFK improves the health of, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but if RFK does a million good things to the HHS, and it's like he's revolutionizes, like sets us 30 years in the future, because we're so far behind the rest of the world when it comes to health stuff. Are you just going to sit there and talk about one topic for 5 years and drive yourself crazy? You know, like, I get what you're saying, but when you can't vote your way out of a topic, there's literally, like, there's people that have burned a bridge with me. I'll forgive them. I'll never forget who said what to me. I'll never forget who tried to dox me. These people are demons to me. I hate them. And I will never have them on my show. I will never respect them. I will never like them. And they've burned a bridge with me for the rest of their lives, because,
of course, dude.
And half of these people, not all of them, but some of these people, it's like they didn't even know that much 3 years ago. It's like they just figured out this year what I've known for 6 years and what I put my life on the line for, and what I've got kicked out of Republican circles 5 years ago. They just figured it out. And now they're just yelling, I'm angry, so I'm more important than you. I'm mad. I hate you. You voted for Trump. It's all your fault. It's like, go fuck yourself. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I get that all the time, dude. I hear you. But here's a question for you, Duke. All right. So I don't vote for Trump, which, by the way, my vote didn't matter. It's not going to change the outcome. But so I don't vote for Trump. You didn't vote for Trump either. Okay. Say Kamala Harris gets in there. How many additional Palestinians are alive today because of that decision? The answer is probably negative some amount.
Right.
Like, there was a ceasefire that came as a consequence of Trump winning. Like, that's crystal clear. That's what happened. So the people that say that Trump is, like, just in the bag for Israel, look, he obviously is doing a lot of favors for Israel. There's no doubt about that. Marco Rubio got the Secretary of State job almost definitively because of Mario Adelson's pressure. But that does not mean that he does everything that they want. And I don't buy it. Like, I've seen enough dissent between Trump and Netanyahu. I mean, he said some things about Netanyahu that are, like, not kind.
To be honest, I think Trump does everything that they want, but it doesn't.
Everything?
I mean, 90 something. I would say, I can't think.
I'll give you 80.
Okay.
I'll give you 80.
I would think 99. But the thing is, whether you disagree with me or not, I'm not going to blame you for it. And like
Right.
me, like, it's not like I think Joe Biden is going to, like, fix America. So it's like I can't vote my way out of this topic. So I'm not going to blame someone who, like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, there was no plan C. There was no plan C. And there was actually no plan B. It was plan A and A. So
I would say this is the question I wanted to ask you, and even the audience as well, because this is the philosophical question I think in my head. It's like the reality of Israel-Palestine is not what everyone wants. Like, it is what it is. So Palestinians, I understand that they were there. Whether Israelis and Zionists want to say they weren't, and it's not that they were there. Okay, to what extent or what did they own? They were there before the people got here recently. Maybe you can go back thousands of years, but whatever. They're getting crushed in this war. Like, I don't think they have the weaponry or the firepower to, like, win the war. They have, I guess, the power to, like, Afghanistan the war, which is, like, survive it and just, make the West give up, which to me is incredibly impressive and brave. And I'm not disrespecting at all. That's incredibly brave. But it's like, I think the logic that Trump is going by, and I'm not saying he's right, but it's like, why do they want to stay there? The buildings are getting bombed. It's destroyed. And they're just going to keep getting bombed by Israel because they're never going to stop.
yeah.
So it's like, this is what maybe the Palestinians, they're so proud of their heritage and their land that they're like, I'd rather die than leave. That's what it seems like. Yeah. But at what point, if they're offered an option to go somewhere or to have a safer, nicer place to stay, what do you think about that? Like, are they fighting a losing battle where it's like, no matter how much they stay, it's just going to be like Trump just said recently, like, it's just going to keep looping where they're just going to keep getting bombed the shit out by Israel, like for the next 100 years.
Well, I think that, Trump is right to a certain extent that, like, there's the promise of a lasting peace between these people was already, fleetingly low. And then you had the past 18 months of just abject horror on both sides, but primarily on the Palestinian side. So I do not see how you come to a two-state solution at this junction. I mean, that's not to say it's impossible. There are examples of incredible bloodshed where two-state solutions ultimately worked out. Ireland kind of comes to mind. It does happen from time to time, but it's very hard. I think that this actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Ukraine, Russia too, though. Is that like, okay, hundreds of thousands of people have died, hundreds of thousands. It's absolutely catastrophic. But here's the reality: you could probably still come to peace. You could still have a two-state solution there. So, like, the border will always be an issue. You're going to have tension. It's going to but you could probably do it. So I can't write it off as a possibility, but at the same time, I do understand there is absolute just seething rage amongst the Palestinian people and the Jewish people of Israel against one another. And how do you resolve that? And this is why my opinion has been for the longest time that I don't know. And my answer is I don't want to be involved. I don't want to fund it. I don't want to arm it. And I love and wish nothing but the best to both sides. But for the love of God, we cannot be involved here. And that's kind of my answer. And I know that's not much of an answer, but I don't know what the answer is. I think if it was easy, it would be done already.
Because for me, especially in the Middle East, I would say in America too, but the Mossad and Israel, they have so much control. I don't know if you saw recently, I think it was ABC or something, where this anonymous Mossad guy came on and he's like, the whole world is a stage and we write the script. Yeah. And it's yeah, but when I say that, I get called an anti-Semite. You say it on ABC and you win a Pulitzer Prize. It's, something's not fair about this relationship. No, but
I'm just quoting the Mossad guy on ABC. What are you?
Literally, it's the whole world is a script.
Yeah.
And we have the pen. And I'm oh, but it's a conspiracy theory when I talk about it. Jeez.
Dude, that
was wild. Jokes aside, or not really jokes aside, but Lebanon is I think Lebanon seems like a really great place. But it's the Mossad and Israel, they're just so much more advanced technologically, and they're probably everywhere. I would guarantee they know everything about Gaza Strip. I highly doubt there's anything they don't know about the Gaza Strip at this point. With that being said, it's to me, I see that, and I think logically, Israel's going to win the war. They're just they have way more weapons, way more money, way more technology, and they're fighting people that are 20 years behind their technology. With that being said, maybe Palestine's
80 years behind technologically in terms of war fighting.
I guess Palestine, they're going for the Afghanistan route, where we spent trillions in Afghanistan and then we're just we don't know what we're doing, and then we just gave it back to the Taliban. So it's there is a path to victory, I guess, for them, because logically I'd be they're going to just keep getting killed. They should probably just get out of there and go somewhere, because even though it's not fair, that's what's going to happen. But I guess it seems through their tactics and their land and stuff that maybe they can just make it they could just make it neutral. Maybe that's their plan, make it neutral for so long. We're losing, but at the same time, they'll never be able to really beat us. So why don't we just wait it out? And they're hoping maybe someone comes in to swoop and save them, one of the Muslim countries or something.
That's explicitly what they've been doing. They have been using the Afghanistan or even Iraq insurgency tactics to just create such a bleed that ultimately you weaken your opponent. And then the other aspect of this is that you also have a PR battle that's transpiring simultaneously, which the Israelis have, I think they've lost it because of social media. I think this is huge part of the reason they wanted to ban TikTok, if not the reason they wanted to ban TikTok, is that because they lost the PR battle because of the footage that was coming out of Gaza. So I think that's what the tactic is. If you want to, what I'm saying is, the Gazans are not going to conquer the Israelis. They're not going to take over their land, but they can win this war. If by win you mean, can they just drag it out and make it the PR battle so bad and the international condemnation so bad, and get some Arab nation, get Lebanon or the Yemenis to keep kicking them in the nuts every now and then, that they just give up. That's how that you could win. But
Right.
man, the cost to win that type of war is a cost I wouldn't want to pay. Like that's why when you said, respect, like I get it. Like respect. Like that's a level of courage that I don't have. Like I'm the type that, like, maybe I would fight for America because it's now going in a trajectory that I like. But like under the Biden administration, had we been invaded by China, like, would you have fought for this country? I'd be like, no, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not fighting to keep Joe Biden in power.
I put my life on the line for Joe Biden. Quote this, folks. I'd lose every last dollar making sure that Joe Biden beats up the communists. I know, but I guess that's what they're going for. And I understand too. It's like, it's not just any land. Like, it is very holy land. Like, that's why Israel wanted to go there. And because I think there was like parts of Africa that they were thinking about, making Israel and making the homeland of the Jewish people. And then they went for the Middle East, like when Zionism was being orchestrated, right?
In the 1890s, the first spot they looked at was, I don't know if it was Liberia, some eastern portion of Africa that they were going to make into Israel. God, I wish they had done that instead of Palestine, because it has not worked out very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been dicey. And I think with all that too, there's a whole religious thing behind it, I'm sure you're aware of, because it's like, if they would have done it in Zimbabwe or wherever, I don't think they would have gotten so many Christians on their side, because historically, like, if you read the writings of Martin Luther and like pretty much any the Bible, like there's a lot of, the Bible says to worship the Lord, not the people who reject him. Like, I mean, it says that all the time. It's not a religion of worshiping people who don't like Jesus or believe on him or think he was a blasphemer. Like, it's not what the.
But you just have to read the Schofield version. Come on.
The footnoted Schofield version will tell you. But it's like, if they would have built it there, they wouldn't have had the support. But by building it there, they've gotten tens of, like, I know people that. Anybody over 50 that believes that, like, there's no sense of even talking to them. It's like talking to someone who listens to Rachel Maddow. They're not going to believe you over their pastor, over their footnoted Bible. So that's like, but I'm always just thinking, like, it's so, I always mention the speech laws, because like that's the easiest in, because it's one of my biggest concerns, because it's in my country. But it's like, I'll talk about the speech laws and I'll be like, they're our greatest ally. It's like, so now you don't believe in the First Amendment because they're such a, like, literally, Christian Zionists have created a new religion where the people who reject Christ are almost above America, the Constitution, in some cases him, where it's like, do you think it's anti-Semitism to read Revelation where it talks about the synagogue of blank? Like, is that hate speech to you? Because it is on X now. If you post that Bible verse on X, it's literally hate speech. If you read certain verses, like it comes back as hate speech, because it says, it talks about basically people thinking that they're above God. And he says, I'll make them of the synagogue of Satan. And to me, it took as like, God is not discriminating based on ethnicity, and he's giving his covenant to everyone. And the people that think it's just for them, are evil. That's what it means. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, I believe it makes sense. I'm Christian, but it's like that these Christians that have gotten so into Zionism, like they literally don't even believe their own scripture in certain cases, where it's like, they're passing speech laws to make parts of the Bible illegal. And no Christian churches talk about it. They don't, like, literally, it's your Bible being deemed hate speech.
I know, man.
Well, they're our greatest okay, you deserve to lose it then. Like, it's like, at that point, maybe they're right. Maybe you're stupid.
I
so
think
it's like,
my big frustration is with the people like Charlie Kirk, because he has such an enormous audience and such immense influence. And all he has to do is basically speak out about this, and it would be like, it would change a lot. And he doesn't, and he will not. You
were like, Charlie Kirk has such an enormous, I thought you were going to say forehead, but you said influence, which is also true.
I was actually going to talk about his gum line, just massive, enormous gum line.
To match his forehead.
But anyways, my point is, like, Charlie Kirk is actually very smart. If you listen to the guy talk, like, he is not a dummy. I'm sure he knows that a lot of this is happening and that he is not okay with it. But he's also not a dummy, and that's why he doesn't talk out. He doesn't speak out about it, because he gets a lot of money as a consequence. And it's very disheartening, because there's a lot of conservative commentators that are very, very influential that I think know better, and they won't just tell the truth. That, like, look, I'm not saying that I want there to be no hate speech laws because I want to be hateful towards Jewish people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this is America, and you cannot censor me. Okay, right. I get to say whatever I want, and whatever conversations I want to have, I get to have. That's the value that we're fighting for here. We're not fighting for the values of, defending some foreign nation. This is insanity.
Well,
And just to say that is framed as being hateful. No, it's not. It's obviously the correct position to hold, and I'm not going to have any shame in saying it. And the fact that you attempt to shame me just makes me despise you.
right.
So, yeah.
No, I'm not a fan. Like, I try to give grace, but Charlie and his giant forehead, it's like James and the giant peas, Charlie and the giant forehead. I make fun of him because I know for a fact, like, I remember in 2019, a lot of people were talking about the speech laws, and Charlie tried to frame it as like me versus Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, where it's like, you could take you and Nick and the Groypers away, but then there's the topic. Like it doesn't matter who says it or what. Like, exactly. I don't care if Ted Cruz says he likes Coca-Cola. Like, it doesn't change my opinion of a soft drink. So it's like, Charlie was one of the biggest, him and Ben Shapiro, they're one of the biggest gatekeepers of the anti-Semitism speech laws. They literally blacklisted, smeared, censored, called names, white nationalists, blah, blah, blah. Like anybody who brought it up at their conferences, they covered this up for 5 years. 5 years later, the dam breaks because Biden's in. Now they have to act like it's just a Joe Biden thing. And Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk were like, duh, what? An anti-Semitism speech law that makes the Bible illegal? Me and my 20-inch gum line are really upset by Joe Biden. And it's like, you coward, you big four-headed fraud, you phony. You know this. You helped cover this up for 5 years. You know that Trump's doing it. You just can't talk about it because the same donors paying Trump to do it are the same donors keeping your organizations afloat, you big four-headed phony. Oh, no, Joe Biden passing anti-Semitism speech laws that go against my Bible. You don't care, you shekel collecting, dollar reporting, Saudi currency holding just to make sure that this doesn't violate any speech laws. You'll take any currency you could get.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Now you're so shocked. Like, and people are like, oh, you're just hateful. I know that they know this. I know that they covered this up for 5 years. I know that they, like with me, I know why you haven't seen me in certain places, and I don't care because I don't need their money. I don't need their attention. I don't need anything from them. So I'm not overtly mad because I'm not getting attention. I don't give a shit. I'm annoyed that nobody knows this because they've blacklisted me and people like me. So you never know this. The entire Fox News, right, Newsmax, Turning Point, Daily Wire. It's a gate to brainwash you to make sure you never figure out that they're passing speech laws to make the Bible illegal. So then Candace figures it out 4 years later. I knew in 2019 that you can't work at Daily Wire if you talk about that stuff. I knew 5 years before Candace started talking about it. Then she starts talking about it, it becomes mainstream, and they go, what? Biden's passing anti-Semitism laws? It's the same law that DeSantis passed in 2019 that you covered up. It's the same law that Trump passed in 2019 that you covered up. You big four-headed phony. Suck up that donor money, Charlie Suckles. Suckle on those pesos, big boy. But don't act so shocked. And then Matt Walsh is like, I don't know what the definition is. Bro, it's on the State Department website. It's been there for 5 years. You know everything about every policy, but this one you just don't know, because this is one, if you pretend you don't know, you make the money. And once you figure it out, they kick you out. I don't know about that because you get millions of dollars not to know about that. Dude, Matt Walsh wrote an article before he worked at Daily Wire saying it's crazy how the Israel lobby pays people and calls people anti-Semitic. I know. He used to go just as hard as Candace Owens. Now he's like, I'm against all foreign aid. Okay, that's the line you're allowed to cross. You would cross other lines if you could.
Right.
These people are basically on a leash.
Yeah, no, and sheesh. Yeah, that was a legendary rant, by the way. Legendary energy right there, folks. Charlie Kirk, I mean, he posts yesterday or like a week ago saying any nation that can't, sustain itself without American aid doesn't deserve to exist and shouldn't. And I was like, and then everyone's like, do you mean Israel? And he's like, I've been saying this for decades. I've always felt this way. It's like, nah, you really haven't though. You've been real quiet about this for quite a lot of years. And then Tim Pool posts the same thing the next day. He gets into a fight with some of my libertarian people because they're like, do you mean Israel too? And he's like, oh, you idiots. Obviously, that's what I mean. But anyways, the point is, yeah, look, this is a financial nuclear bomb. You talk about it, you go poof. And if you're at the highest levels of political commentary, they're going to drop you down to B tier. That's how it works. Right. Everybody knows it. Nobody says it. I don't care about saying it or not, because I already made my money before I got into this game. So I'm just here to tell the truth, which is why you and I get along, because we're just both here interested in the truth. That's all we're going to say. the truth as best we can, glean it. And it's just very frustrating that people that I know are very smart and very capable won't just do the right thing. I know you don't want there to be hate speech laws. I know you don't. So just say it. Just say it. If you all say it, then this probably stops. But they won't.
But also the Mar-a-Lago invites stop, and the dinner parties stop, and the getting multi-million-dollar contracts stop. So it's like, do you want that to stop? Like, there's a line where it's like, you could say you're against foreign aid, but just say it like once a year, and like don't specify. And when you post about foreign aid, make sure you just talk about Ukraine. Ukraine's taking money, and it's like, all right, what about that other country? They're like, oh, geez, you hater.
Like this is what I'm talking about with Charlie Kirk and most of these other conservatives that are very, very popular. They go so hard in the paint about Ukraine. They're like, gotta end the aid to Ukraine, and I'm like, yes, I agree. But like, what about the other war that we've shipped off tens of billions of dollars to? Nothing to say about that at all. And it's like, no, the reality is no, they don't have anything to say about that because they can't say anything about that and still continue to do what they do. It's crazy.
Yeah, or the hate speech laws where it's like that. I mean, this is why I came to be this way. This is my arc, my hero's arc. But it was like in 2019.
I was born in the censorship.
I just watched them start arguing, and I was like, wait, Dennis Prager's posting a documentary called No Safe Spaces, but then Republicans are passing protest laws to say that there's safe spaces on college campus where you can't protest a foreign country. I'm like, at the time, it's like, it's not about what country it is. It's just about the sheer hypocrisy where it's like, if we're allowed to speak our minds because that's actually good for everything, why would there be one exception where it's like, except for this thing, free speech is kind of bad and it's bad to protest. I thought we could just win by the merit of our ideas. Like whether it's race, gender, I can win by the merit of my ideas. I don't need to censor someone who's pro-Palestine or wearing a pharmaceutical mask. Like I could beat them with an argument, but that
who taught us? Do you know who taught us that? It was Ben Shapiro on college campuses over the past 15 years. It was Jordan Peterson. What do they have to say about these hate speech laws when it comes to anti-Semitism? Nothing.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's also like it makes me think that. Well, one, I obviously know that they're trying to maintain whatever social status they have, but also it makes me think that they're actually really afraid to have these conversations because it's like, I don't know. I feel like I would be willing to talk to a good faith person that's like has different racial views of me, and I feel confident in my beliefs and in my kindness to do well in the debate. If they have to shut down a protest, if they have to shut down conversations and say it's hate speech, like are they so afraid of like when Tucker Carlson and this guy talked about World War II? Why don't you just make a video disagreeing with them? Like I didn't even care that much about that podcast, but I'm like, they must be so frightened at what they're saying that they know that in a debate, like if James Lindsay sat down with like Daryl Cooper, like, do you think he thinks he could win a debate? Or, all these people who hate on Tucker Carlson, Tucker's like the biggest star in Republican politics. And I've watched him debate Cenk Uygur. He's a great debater. They know that they couldn't even shine Tucker Carlson's shoes. They'd be lucky if they could pick the dirt off of his shoes. Yet they talk about him on Twitter because it's like, oh, he's being hateful. He's being this and that. Bro, he would mop you in a debate and no one would think he's hateful. So it's like, I feel like they know.
So would Candace to most of these dudes. Like most of these dudes would not be able to hold their own against Candace either.
There was one of my favorite debates from Candace. Like I haven't seen any of her newer videos that much, but when I watched her debate this guy like Rabbi Barclay, and he had smeared her as an anti-Semite. So she goes like, that
was a disastrous debate. That was crazy.
I enjoyed it, but I said like it was like what? Okay, let's say what does anti-Semitic define it for me, since that seems to be like a cornerstone of the debate. And the first thing he did was he goes 2,000 years ago. You know what happened 2,000 years ago? The story and the life of Jesus Christ. So it's like you start listening to what he thinks is anti-Semitism. He traced it back to basically Jesus's disciples or people that followed Jesus that were just being so hateful. So it's like Christians don't even realize that some people are holding like a 2,000-year grudge because your religion sees him as the Lord and Savior. Their religion does not. You know what I'm saying? It's like in many ways, I'm not saying completely, but it's like some people view it as the exact antithesis. Like you think that's the Lord. They hate that moment. They hate his followers.
Yeah.
Duh! Just watch
obviously.
the debate. They'll tell you that right there, where it's like, they have a book that says he's boiling in hot excrement. I know that that is just a conversation between a bunch of people, and that's not the word of God and stuff, but it is there.
Right.
It's written somewhere, but it's like, if you notice that, they'll just call you an anti-Semite. So it's like, I like that debate because I was just like, I want to hear what he thinks. And it's like, I had no idea that they were tracing anti-Semitism. Basically, the origins of anti-Semitism were the times of Christ and his disciples. And then it makes sense when you read their hate speech laws, where they're like, they're tracing everything back to that moment, and Christians are just completely oblivious. It's fascinating.
Yeah, well, and this is why it needs to be rejected, because that's absurd. Like, you can't create laws in modern times for 2,000-year-old grudges. That's insanity. But,
yeah,
I mean, it's like textbook insanity. But here's the thing: it's not that Tucker Carlson is the smartest, most gifted debater in the world, nor is Candace Owens, nor is one of my best friends, Dave Smith. The reason that these people mop these other people is because they get to tell the truth. They don't have any topics that are off limits. They don't have any areas where they have to lie. So, like, they may be wrong about some things, and I think that they are sometimes, but they are still trying to tell the truth. And I'm telling you, that is the prerequisite for winning debates. The whole reason Ben Shapiro kicks the shit out of these blue-hair college kids is because their entire ideology is predicated off of lies. It's very easy to defeat someone whose entire ideology is based off of, like, fundamental lies, which is what leftism is. But guess what? The Ben Shapiros, the James Lindsays, and the Konstantin Kissins of the world, they would also get trounced by these people because they're not telling the truth about these areas of discussion. This is why I welcome it. This is why you welcome it. This is why Dave welcomes it, and Candace welcomes it, and Tucker Carlson welcomes it, is that we will mop you people because we get to tell the truth and you can't. So dude, you may get more millions than me, and you may get more viewers and listeners than me, but you don't get to tell the truth like I do, and that's priceless, and I won't ever give that up.
I've been waiting for a debate on this topic since 2019. Nobody has really done it. This lady, Conservative Mama, did, and that was fun. But I wanted to mention this comment because I don't have to address this, but I want to, so I will. Someone said, you're discredited because you supported DeSantis, who did the speech laws. Let me just be really clear about this. I was one of the very few people, and probably only people, when every Trump supporter was just on DeSantis's nuts until he ran against Trump. I was doing reports about the anti-Semitism laws in 2019. It doesn't matter if it's
you're
Trump,
literally
DeSantis.
The person I heard it from. I didn't even know about it until you.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. And I heard from others, people that showed me. But in general, it's like when Trump and DeSantis ran against each other, DeSantis started talking the truth about the vaccine, and Joseph Lapato, his guy who's the Surgeon General, was like speaking the truth. And Trump was running around saying, Florida is one of the worst places to live. Florida is one of the worst places to visit. Florida is one of the worst places to be a cop. Florida is one of the worst places to be a teacher. And I was like, bro, you fled a Democrat state to Florida. And then you're saying how bad it is, and it's on all these categories. Trump was pathologically lying at any cost in order to try to win that election. I didn't vote for DeSantis in the primary, nor did I really care who won. But the point that I'm getting to is, like, I do journalism. My journalism, I'm not a fanboy of Trump or DeSantis. I call out DeSantis when he's wrong. And when there's a topic that DeSantis tells the truth on and Trump's lying, it's not my fault that Donald Trump's lying. Trump also said that Bobby Kennedy's lying about the vaccine. And now Bobby Kennedy's saying he thinks Operation Warp Speed is a great achievement. These people are politicians. They lie constantly, all of them. I'm not doing that. So it's like, right. I don't, because I reported on the speech laws, but then I talk about other topics. Anytime I talked about DeSantis, I always said that he supports the speech laws. But the thing is, for that topic, it's basically a null and void because Trump does the same thing. It's just this is the difference between me and other people, and why people get confused is most people that support Trump will be like, DeSantis, they started talking about DeSantis' speech laws in like 2023. They're like, DeSantis signs anti-Semitism speech laws. Even Vivek did that, but none of them would talk about Donald Trump doing it. So it's like, do you even really believe what you're saying if you're only willing to call out one? None of these shysters said a word about the speech laws until DeSantis ran against Trump. And then they tricked their audience into thinking that Trump didn't sign them. Trump signed it through executive order when DeSantis passed it through the state. Trump is just as complicit as DeSantis on it. I'm being reasonable about it, but it's like, that doesn't mean that everything DeSantis says is wrong. And that doesn't mean that Trump isn't doing it also. So it's like, exactly. I don't see, it's not that hard to figure out, but yeah.
I fled California for Florida because DeSantis is one of the best governors in the country. I also don't like the hate speech laws, and I think that they are unconstitutional and immoral and insane. And if you like, can I criticize him and still live here? Do I have to leave because of these laws? Like, it's kind of ridiculous, right? And look, RFK Jr. He's at the Senate confirmation hearings. Is he going to get up there and condemn Operation Warp Speed and condemn, one of Trump's greatest achievements is he's trying to get the Republicans to get him, into HHS? No, he's not. So am I going to hold that against him? No, I'm not. I want him to be confirmed.
Me too.
So that's, you have to understand like the political calculus that goes into these things. And that doesn't mean you set your principles aside. It just means like, what do you do in action? Like that's really what matters. And oftentimes DeSantis and Trump do things in action that I don't like. And I'm going to call that out.
Right.
But 80% of the time they do better stuff than the, alternatives. So that's where I'm at.
I agree with the RFK stuff too. Like, I don't care what he says in this confirmation hearing. But the thing is, like, I get why you might not trust him because it's hard to trust somebody that flip-flops all the time.
Exactly.
I don't trust RFK. I like what he's done, and I think he'll do a 20 times better job. And I think all the evidence proves he'll be a 100 times better HHS director than anyone else. Do I trust him? Like, in what sense? He seems trustworthy to, like, watch your dog for an hour, but do I trust him with like all the time? No, he's got a lot of policies that I disagree with, and he's got a questionable past or whatever. But it's like I personally don't care. I don't care that he says Operation Warp Speed's a great achievement in the thing, because it's like what he says doesn't matter to me at this point. What he does, and it's like I realize all these people are politicians, and I don't. It's like I get why people would hate it, but I just feel like people choose these things to just harp on for 5 years. Where it's like, say he gets confirmed. What he said 5 days ago, although you shouldn't trust him if he lies, it's just like what he does matters. If he then goes on to do anything, like if there's two options for him, right? This is a moral quandary that people can decide themselves. He could say, I think most vaccines are dangerous, blah, 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 and then not get confirmed. Or he could just pretend for one day that he's a huge fan of Operation Warp Speed, get confirmed, and then fix the HHS. Like, which one would you rather him do? I'd rather him just say Operation Warp Speed is a great achievement. But would I do that? I'm not a politician. I'm not the HHS director. I don't have to do that, nor would I. But it's like, I'm not living in a world of what I would do if I was everybody. I'm living in the world we're in now, and it's like the world we're in now is this one. So I don't give a shit what he says at the camera. I don't care if he stands up and just says like, Baby Shark goes do 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 do, and they're like, he's losing his mind. It's like, dude, I don't care what he says. The next 2 days.
I don't even care if he stands up and he's like, here, he brings Fauci in and he's like, give me my 5th booster. I'd be like, that's bizarre. That's totally crazy behavior. But you know what? I get it. I understand what you're doing. You're trying to get confirmed. So whatever.
I bet he's done some crazier things than a vaccine in his lifetime. He's just like, give me one more. I don't care. I was like, And then people say you can't do his voice when you're doing an impression of him. It's like, how else are you going to do an impression? Can I not do this when I do Trump? Like, listen, okay. Like, you have to do that to do the impression. So, unpopular opinion. You can't do an RFK impression without doing his voice. Like, I know everyone gets so mad, but it's like, what am I supposed to be like? I'm RFK Jr. and I sound like this. It's like, no, he sounds like this. I don't know.
Normally, I just think that Operation Warp Speed was one of the greatest. I can't do it either. Anyway,
no, thank you. I agree, RFK. Whatever you got to say now. Get the seed oils out of my country and get the red dye out of my hostess.
There you
treats. Any last things? Thank you guys for being here. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I'll just toss it over to you. Any last statements?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's like just a kind of a pledge to your audience and an ask of them too, is that like all I'm promising you is I'm going to continue to tell the truth as best I can. And I don't think it benefits your cause, your movement, your country, your family, your people, your progeny if you don't do the same. Telling the truth, holding your politicians to account. Don't idolize or turn them into. Don't practice idolatry here. Just demand of them to uphold their promises to you. And Donald Trump did not ever float the idea of owning Gaza. So when he talks about that, you don't have to say, Clint, calm down. Wait, let's just see how this plays out. Just let it be known that you don't want to own Gaza. Just say that. It's okay. It's okay to say that. It doesn't make you a traitor. It doesn't make you a hater of Donald Trump to say that. I think that they pay attention to this stuff. They really do. Like all these tweets that go viral saying, what is Trump talking about? And then all of a sudden at the press conference this morning, his gal comes out there and she goes, Trump is not committing troops to Gaza. We are not doing any of that. This is just a negotiation. I think that like our voices matter right now more than they ever have. So use it. That's all I'll say. Now, Liberty Lockdown is a show. Subscribe. Thanks, man.
Yeah. On that note, Trump and his team, they're tapped into social media more now than ever. Your voice is heard more now than ever. And regardless of what people want to think, because everybody looks at politicians and thinks, oh, everyone likes Trump for the same reason that I do. It's not true. Trump won the popular vote. He won the Senate. He won the House. He won the presidency. And our culture is shifting because they notice statistics. And even the people that say your vote doesn't matter, I don't believe that. But even if it was true, us winning the vote has shifted the culture, and that does matter because they notice statistics. So it's like this coalition of Trump, it included Make America Healthy Again. It included tens of millions of America who care more about seed oils than they do about politics. It included millions, if not tens of millions, of Muslims, or in some cases, people that are sympathetic towards Palestine, who perceive Trump as the lesser of two evils in this situation. It included tens or hundreds of millions, probably tens of millions of people who love Israel. And it's a beautiful thing when a president can get tens of millions of people who like Palestine and tens of millions of people who like Israel to vote for him on this idea of peace. Yeah. So this is a big topic. And I know Caroline Levitt, or probably people behind her, these are not dumb people. And these are people that notice statistics and notice trends. So if they notice that they're losing 20% of the coalition that got them to win, they might move on it, in a better view. So it's like, yeah, voicing, I guess my last statement would be voice your opinion. Don't be afraid. It doesn't make you a traitor, but also be reasonable about it, because I think some people are like psychotic with it. And then when I voice my opinion, some people think I'm like mad and I'm just sitting there typing. And I know what politics is. And I guess I don't expect Trump, RFK, like I know who these people are. I don't expect that much out of them. And I do demand a lot, and I want them to do well. But I guess to me, I realize like, what can I and what can I control? I've made this mistake in the past. I've wanted people to agree with me, and that's just not how it works. But 4 years later, I've noticed topics that I was talking about become mainstream. So it's like shifting culture to me is more interesting than politics at this point, and the politicians will catch up. So do I want Trump to do better? Yes. Do I want RFK to do best? Yes. But I'm not going to freak out about it, because it's like I understand that we need to get certain numbers to a certain place, which is why also, regardless of what you think, you got to be not just convincing, but like good with it. Because if you're just like yelling into the wind and it's repulsing people, then it's actually not doing anything. So it's like, voice your opinion, doesn't make you a traitor, be reasonable about it. And then just be patient with certain results, because at the end of the day, like things will shift. Just don't freak out about it.
Be cool, but don't be a pushover. I think that's a good way to do it.
Thanks everybody for watching. Check out my links, and I'm going to have a video probably tomorrow, if not Friday, but most likely tomorrow. It's going to be 15 minutes. So let me know in the comments if you like that, if you like the long ones. Let me know if you like Clint, or you don't like his hat and his shirt and his voice.
Goatee. Oh man,
I'm just kidding. Appreciate y'all. Dream Rare Podcast. It's been fun. Thanks for being here, Clint.
Peace. Thanks, man.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free.